Youssef Zalal started off his UFC career at a blaring 3-0. It's now 3-3. He was originally due Dana White's Contender Series 2021 winner, Christian Quinlan this weekend. But Quinlan is out. So in on just 10 days notice, announced on August 3rd, we have the CFFC Bantamweight champ, Damon Blackshear, a guy that trains out of Jackson Wink MMA. And now, for the Fight Night Picks fans out there, it's a little bit of a story time. Because listen, Fight Night Picks started in 2018, in April of that year. In June of that year, I got the confidence up to go, you know what? I want to go to a live event. So I sent a message out to NEF just on Facebook. It was on a Wednesday. I said, hey, I know you guys have some cards coming up this summer. I'd be really interested in coming down, covering one of them. Let me know what you think. And they went, well, we have one this weekend. Do you want to go? And I thought, well, fuck, it's 5 hours away down in Portland. I don't know if I can do it. So I asked my buddy Brandon, I said, you want to go to Portland for the weekend? He goes, yeah, let's do it. So I went down having no fucking clue what I was going to do. I'm this one guy with a cell phone. I got a computer. What the hell am I going to do?
Do you want a pat on the back?
No, all I'm saying is I didn't know what I was going to do. And in the main event, it was Damon Blackshear coming in as the guy that wasn't with the promotion, off of a loss in his last fight, to take on a guy out of Bangor Brewer area, Aaron Lacey. And in that fight, Damon Blackshear really did surprise me. He fought a great fight. I brought him on when it was just a podcast. I had a great interview with Damon Blackshear. All this to say, he was one of those really early fighters from the ground floor that I followed with Fight Night Picks that you can go back and have a look at. And motherfucker, he's with the UFC now. And it's just awesome to see those prospects make it to that top level. And for Blackshear, you look at it, I mean, the guy had a great, impressive run as an amateur. He went 7-1 there. The only loss, a decision to Tony Gravely. As a pro.
And he had beat Tony Gravely earlier on in his amateur career, so not the end of the world.
Yeah, exactly. As a pro, loses to Keith Richardson by split decision. Loses to Chris Mutino by decision with CES. Loses to Pat Sabatini by decision with CFFC. Loses to Danny Sabatello. It's like this dark horse motor mouth over with Bellator right now. But you look at the wins that he's been able to have. You look at Damon Blackshear, the performances. I know he fought at Rock Training, ROC, Team Rock, and that was great. But since he's made the move to Jackson Wink, Damon Blackshear, if you don't know this guy, all the conversation this week is going to be Blackshear's on short notice. Youssef Zalal is such a good fighter in the UFC, and I understand that. Damon Blackshear is going to be a guy in the UFC for a long time, and I love that he finally got signed to the promotion.
And I think he's going to be the type of guy who the octagon jitters won't get to him. Now, that's very easy for me to say earlier on in the week. I haven't seen these guys fight yet, but still, this is an interesting fight to me. Please feel free to say, because this is not where I'm going to hand it off to you. I think there's a chance this fight's a dud. I really do. Now, this is why I say that. For Youssef Zalal, we all know how well-rounded his skill set is and how, hey, he does have good power punching. He's somebody who can blitz from the outside. We know that he does have the wrestling background, even though that was kind of his downfall against Ilia Topuria. But still, Topuria is one of the best fighters in the world, much less the division. So, I just think there's a world where Blackshear is a little bit hesitant from the outside, doesn't want to go for those crazy bursts that we know him for, and I'll talk about those more a little bit later. I just feel like there is a world where both fighters realize how dangerous their opponent is and what position they are in the UFC. Let's be honest, we both really like Youssef Zalal coming into the UFC, but 3 losses in a row is a tough look for anybody as skilled as he is. Now, at only 25, bordering 26 years of age, there's definitely a world where, let's say he does get cut from the organization, he could come back and look really good in his second round. Look at guys like Julian Erosa who've been able to do that. Damon Jackson is another guy who comes to mind. Like, it's not like it's a death sentence if you do get cut from the organization, but
Dustin Jacoby doing the damn thing.
Exactly, and he looks phenomenal as of late. Really good example. So, I do feel like there's a world where Zalal comes into this fight trying to fight in a tentative manner. Now, will Blackshear even give him that opportunity? I think there is a world where Damon is a little bit on the back foot and it takes him a bit of a round to feel out this fight. And then maybe after that first round, we do get a lot of action. But I do feel like there is going to be a heavy feeling out process between these two athletes. Just because for Zalal, we all know how talented his sort of Hall of Fame version can be, even though we've yet to see that in his past number of performances. And for Blackshear, I agree with everything you said. His losses are to great fighters who have made it to the UFC. How many times do we come on this show and we go, hey, this guy might be 17-2, but his losses are to a guy who was like 2-14 and a guy who was 1-17. Like, Blackshear's lost to fighters that you and I both know very well who have fought at this level, and there's no shame in those whatsoever. So I do feel like it's one of those win or you learn. And I do think that Blackshear has been able to learn throughout his career because he has shown improvements based off of the losses. Again, I just keep on going back to there's a version of this fight where Both guys a little bit tentative. It comes down more to the volume numbers than anything because neither guy's able to get the takedown, and I do fear that a little bit in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at this for Zalal, comes into the UFC, fights Austin Lingo, it's kind of thrown together. Zalal looks great in that matchup. The craziest part about it is, though, like 18 years old, he makes his pro debut in 2015. This is where the numbers get weird, and I told Matt before we started any of this, we were really excited about this fight, hopefully it shows, but I said, I've got this weird wrinkle to throw into this fight. So, you look at all of these ones that Zalal has had in the UFC, he's a favorite against Jordan Griffin, he's the favorite against Peter Barrett, he's the favorite against Ilia Topuria, he's a minus 245 favorite against Sung Woo Choi. Lost to Topuria, it's gonna happen, lost to Sung Woo Choi, Sting. He was the underdog against Austin Lingo. He was the underdog against Sean Woodson, and I know that one's a contentious fight. It's a split decision fight. I thought Sean Woodson was able to get it done on the feet, but I do look at this. My big comp that I've had the whole way along is that Youssef Zalal is kind of like a not so refined version of Bobby Green. He can strike from the outside. He can defend the takedown. He's probably not going to go for his own takedown, but his boxing's something that can get it done for him. But for Zalal, Factory X and Muay Thai, those last 3 fights, it's left a lot to be desired out of him. And a big thing that I have, like, he does have really good wrestling defense. He has shown that in the UFC.
Exactly.
I know it was his detriment against Ilia Topuria, but flip that on its head and forget about what you think about Jordan Griffin. Defended 6 of 8 Jordan Griffin takedowns, and he was able to mix things up on the feet. So I like a lot of things out of Youssef Zalal. I do like the volume that he's able to throw, but the trouble that I have is, I don't know if Blackshear is going to give him any inch. I mean, you look at the guys that Blackshear fought, moving up through this. He wrestled at Frankfurt High School. He's a public league champ over there. But I look at the guys that he's fought. Fought former cage, CS bantamweight champ Josh Smith. Fighting really tall, had his hands down low. You look at the way that Blackshear initiates some of these clinch situations, the takedowns. When he flows in his grappling, I talk about this a lot. TJ Dillashaw is one of my favorite grappler wrestlers in MMA. Damon Blackshear is of that ilk where he's just so creative, flowing between his positions, gaining momentum out of the scrambles, getting in these advantageous positions. And if he doesn't get the armbar in this spot, well then holy hell, he switches to a back-mounted crucifix, or he gets your back and he's going and he's got the hooks in and then he's going rear naked choke. I know Blackshear has a lot of rear naked finishes, but I love the ground game. I love the finishing aspects. Now we get to find out, hey, can he do it on the big stage against Youssef Zalal? That's the biggest question, and it's on 10 days' notice. And Youssef Zalal's never fought at 135 pounds before. I know he's getting ready for a fight at 135. It kind of feels like a bit of a weird move. 3 losses, now we're at 135, but
he is a young guy, though, I will point that out.
Yeah, he's had 15 fights. He's fought between 155, 145, and 140. This is the first one at bantamweight for Blackshear. All of this experience at 135. I'm really eager to see this fight because obviously I framed it in a couple of different ways. I love what Zalal brings to the cage. He's so dynamic, so well-rounded. For Blackshear, decent striking, not his hallmark. Really lights out grappler. I think this is such a fun fight. I can't wait for this fight.
Youssef Zalal is officially in my Dante Exum category. And I loved Dante Exum at one point. God, I thought he was going to be good in the NBA. But the problem is, I thought Youssef Zalal was going to be great too. And he has had some flat performances as of late. But I agree with you 100%. You have to bring up the fact that Blackshear only took this fight on 10 days notice. And that does matter. Like, short notice fights really do matter. Do you know why fighters have a 10 to 8 to 6 week training camp? Because they need to if they want to win fights. And the fact that Youssef Zalal was preparing for a fight this weekend, whereas Blackshear is brought in on short notice, does make me a little bit worried about just not the level of fitness, I shouldn't say, about Blackshear, but still, all the intangibles we know about taking a fight on short notice, the weight cut, their level of preparedness, we can go into a bunch of different categories, but still, for Zalal, he's fighting for his UFC career, and I cannot stress that enough. And I really do think his takedown defense is going to be the most important part of his game, because on the feet, again, I worry about Zalal's not great output. He has good output. That's the only difference between him and like a Bobby Green. Bobby Green doesn't have to knock you out on the feet to be able to beat you. He can hit you 100 times a round and still be able to win those rounds and win a decision. For Zalal, it does come down a little bit more to his power punches than just his overall output. I do, because I don't think Zalal's the type of guy who can go out there and really put it on you in that like Hall of Fame pace way. I think he can land a good power shot here or there, but I really think he has to have a big striking advantage over his opponent to then be able to set up some kind of a big shot. Kind of like how we talked earlier about like a Josh Quinlan setting up traps. I think we're going to have to see a lot of that out of Youssef Zalal for him to really have success, but And even against my better judgment, I still find myself slightly leaning to Zalal. Just because, again, he had the full training camp. I agree with you. I think this is going to be a very fun fight. And I look at this fight for Blackshear almost like when David Onama had fought Mason Jones at 155. It's like, hey, you make good account of yourself. You might not win. You might not lose. It doesn't really matter the outcome. You're going to get another opportunity with the organization. And I think Blackshear is going to have a lot of success at this level. I do agree with you on that front. But I do ever so slightly like Youssef Zalal just for his well-rounded game and that takedown defense. I think that's going to be an extremely important key for this fight.
The odds open with Zalal a minus 170 favorite. They're about at par right now, meaning that Blackshear open a plus 145. And if we have a look at the Topology votes, surprise to us as they are to you, Zalal's been in the UFC. He was the underdog in his last fight against Woodson, the underdog in his debut against Austin Lingo, and then the other 4 fights, he was a big favorite against Sungwoo Choi. He is the more well-known commodity, but he hasn't fought. His last fight against Sean Woodson was a year ago, and for Blackshear, fought 2 months and a little bit ago. I'm going to say, again, Zalal, over under 70%.
I'll say under.
You're going to say under? It's slightly under. So 451 total votes, 63% Zalal, 91% by decision. For the 37% that have Blackshear, 58% by decision, 27% by submission. See, this is where I think Zalal... I think if he puts a good pitter-patter game from the outside going, if he can deter Blackshear from some of those takedown entries, force him into a striker, I think Zalal can get a win here. I think Damon Blackshear is gaining so much out of Jackson Wink. I know Arlene Blanco, Holly Holm really featured a lot on the Instagram game. I think Blackshear is finally rounding out into that final form at 28. Took some bumps in the road against a really good level of competition on the regional scene. You'll love to see a former CFFC champ in the UFC. Obviously, Sabatini, the connection there. I think Blackshear is going to be able to get it done in this matchup. You hate it. Zalal's on a 3-fight losing streak, so we zig and we zag. I have Blackshear in this matchup. You have Zalal. I think it's going to be a good one, though.
I don't think I've ever heard you say, well, this person trains with Arlene Blanco, so they're probably going to have a big advantage. Should be a really fun fight, like I said, and I can see where you're coming from with the Blackshear pick, but I do feel like Zalal's UFC experience is really going to help him in this matchup.
Big-time matchup coming up this weekend. I'm going with the Diamond, Dustin Poirier. No, it's Blackshear to get the win in this one. You're going with the Moroccan Devil, Youssef Zalal. Let us know in the comment section. I really want to hear from you out there because I'm surprised that the votes are where they are on Topology. So let us know who you have in this matchup. We have another fight in the bantamweight division up at the top. Marlon Vera taking on Dominic Cruz. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. As we always say, let's get into it.